Done. Please start.
Namaste and a warm welcome to everybody on this group again. And it's always a great pleasure and privilege to have with us the team from TKDL, Dr. Vishwajanani Satyagiri, Dr. Vijay Lakshmi and Dr. Anil Kumarji. So thank you very much for holding the fort and enlightening all our participants. We'll start with a small mantra and then we'll hand it over to you without any further delay. Sahana bhavatu, sahanau bhunaktu, sahaviryam karavavahai, tejasvinavadhitamastu, ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So just a small announcement. Today is the last day of the session as per se. Tomorrow there will be more of a summarization in the beginning, followed by the assessment. And only those who are participating in the assessment will receive certificates, depending on your performance also. So kindly make sure that you're participating and that you're also going through all the material that is being shared with you thus far. So for these few words, over to you. And again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Anuradha. So we can begin today's talk, and I'll just share my presentation. So is everyone able to see my presentation and hear me also? Anil, if you can confirm.
Yes, it's visible. Yes, we can hear you properly.
All right. Thank you. So a very good evening to all of you. And for today's talk, it will be handling and working with traditional knowledge, ethical aspects. What we will be discussing here today is more to do with the oral traditional knowledge, that is the undisclosed traditional knowledge. Yesterday, we had spoken about the traditional knowledge like TKDL, as well as protection of traditional knowledge, in which we spoke of TKDL as one of the ways of defensive protection of traditional knowledge. Today, what we will be talking about is handling and working with traditional knowledge. Now, this specifically, this topic is important because, as I mentioned to you yesterday, we have no legal provision for protecting traditional knowledge in the country. So whenever we are documenting, accessing, using for anything, like even publication or for further research, it's very important how we do it in an ethical manner without affecting the rights and livelihoods of the knowledge holders who are in possession of such knowledge. Okay. All right. So the relevant traditional knowledge that we will be talking about today, as I mentioned, is the undisclosed or the oral traditional knowledge. What do we mean by undisclosed or oral traditional knowledge? Yesterday, we discussed about primary and secondary sources of knowledge, where I mentioned that the primary sources would be the text, books, manuscripts, or any kind of place where it has been recorded. The other aspect also I told you about is the oral traditional knowledge, that is the primary source, wherein the person himself, the community members, or the family who own and possess the traditional knowledge, they would be primary holders. So when we talk about primary holders, I also specified that some of this knowledge may still be accessible in the form of some recorded form. Like many of these families, the knowledge holders, they have these information written in some form. For instance, in palm leaf or in some text or in some books which they may have possession, or they may have even shared it with others. In that case, it would be known language knowledge which is in public domain, but where it is not shared and it is present very much within a person, or with a person or within a community or a family, then that would be coming in the category of undisclosed knowledge. Okay. So this undisclosed knowledge could be oral tribal folk knowledge, which is present with individuals, families, and communities, or it could also be manuscripts. Now, yesterday someone also asked why I included manuscripts in the secondary source. I also mentioned that when a person records it, the person who is recording it is the primary source, and the recorded version, that is the manuscript, is the secondary source. Here, as an exception, I've also included manuscripts because manuscripts also may be such, okay, where it is not generally available or generally known and it is not in public domain. It is present, maybe just a single copy present in some library or in some family. We must have seen many of the places whenever you go to traditional healers, they would have some old, sort of those tin boxes they have. I have seen these Nadi Josiers in way back in down in the south region, where they would open these tin boxes, have these written palm scripts, and from where they would tell you, about your family, some conditions of your medical, your health, and things like that. These things are in the possession of only them. It is not really generally known. And there are also medicinal information or many other such information which is present in manuscripts, which is not general information. So such information which is not disclosed, also we include in this undisclosed knowledge. So who are the stakeholders which we have to, yes, Mona, it is Tamrapatra, correct. So the stakeholders who are also have possessed this knowledge, we would include among them creators. Creators in the sense, see, I also told you that although these traditional knowledge is maybe age-old, very ancient, often where the families and the people who are using them may have introduced some minor improvisation, some kind of innovation. So in fact, you could have creators even in the current generation, creators of that particular improvement, whereas the knowledge itself might be very old. Then practitioners. Practitioners, when we talk about practitioners, I will give you an example in terms of traditional healers, because we work in the field of medicinal in the Indian systems of medicine. So here there'll be two different types of stakeholders that we can identify. One is the practitioners themselves. That is, they would have learned it from someone, but they are traditional healers and they practice the particular traditional knowledge. They could be owners who are actually in possession of that knowledge. They may have shared it with somebody to allow them to practice it, but they are the owners. Now, these need not necessarily overlap. There are owners who will practice. There may be owners who don't practice and practitioners who don't own. That is why I have written them separately. Similarly, we will have custodians. Custodians are similar to owners. They only are in possession of that information. They may not even be the actual owners of it, but only possessing that particular knowledge. Again, intermediaries. Intermediaries are very important because we have a set of people, maybe a traditional community or practitioners or stakeholders living in some remote corner of the place. And there may be others who are interested in accessing that knowledge or benefiting from that knowledge. Then we need these people who are intermediaries who will take you to that person. And these people also play a very important role, and they're important stakeholders in the realm of traditional knowledge. That is the undisclosed traditional knowledge, because not many people are aware of such things. Now, for instance, we all have heard of that medicine which they, in Andhra Pradesh, where they put it in the live fish and then feed the person and cure people of several ailments. Okay, today in the era of internet, all of this information is known to us, but maybe when it is a very remote place where such information is not accessible, we would need such people who need we need the intermediary to connect you to the people who have and possess such knowledge. Okay. Now, I'll give you some background when we talk about this undisclosed traditional knowledge. Reason being, when we discuss what are the problems and challenges in the subject matter of undisclosed traditional knowledge, and why we are even discussing the need to ethically handle such knowledge, we need to have some background. Some information we already discussed yesterday, just to remind you. There are several national and international provisions which deal with oral traditional knowledge or traditional knowledge per se, that will include the undisclosed traditional knowledge that we are talking about. Okay. In this, there is a convention called the Convention of Biological Diversity, where it talks about conservation of biological diversity. We all understand that when we are talking about use of biological diversity in some traditional knowledge, often it so happens that usage, Dr. Sujata, are you not able to hear? Are others able to hear? Can someone confirm, please?
No,
Yes, you are
voice
quite
is clear,
audible.
ma'am.
Okay,
There is
okay.
no issue at all.
All right, maybe at her end. Okay. Sujata, you may check at your end, please. So conservation of biological diversity. Other important aspect is the sustainable use of its components. Why? Because the more you use the biological diversity or the biodiversity, maybe in the form of plant and ingredients, some animal product or anything. So the way you use it, unless it is conserved and sustainably used, you're likely to lose it over a period of time, which has been happening with many of our biological resources. And the third most important aspect is fair and equitable sharing of benefits arising out of the utilization of the genetic resource, including appropriate access to the genetic resource. This is the important aspect which I also spoke about yesterday in very brief, where we need to compensate the knowledge holder or the person who shares the information, that is the provider, for his knowledge. Okay, so that fair and equitable sharing of benefits, there are some provisions in India because we have signed the Convention on Biological Diversity and we have implemented a law, namely the Biological Diversity Act, which speaks about the fair and equitable sharing of benefits. Okay, so here also one more protocol we should know about, that is the Nagoya Protocol, which is under the Convention of Biological Diversity, where it again talks about prior informed consent or approval. That is involvement of the indigenous and local communities. So it is very important that whatever access or future use or anything that is done to the biological resource is with due consent and due approval of the community which manage or conserve that kind of biological diversity. Okay, so in India we have the Biological Diversity Act. This has been very recently amended this year. So as per this act, we have three sets of authorities. The first level being the National Biological Authority. National Biodiversity Authority. Now, this Biodiversity Authority is the apex authority. It is at the national level. They have their own roles and responsibilities. And the second level is the State Biodiversity Board. The State Biodiversity Board also have their roles and the responsibilities. But the lowest one of them, which is the Biodiversity Management Committee, they play a very important role, because the biodiversity management committees are the people who actually engage with the local population, that is with the traditional knowledge holders or the biodiversity conservers, and in consultation with the people maintain something called the People's Biodiversity Register, where all this information is recorded. So the National Biodiversity Authority is responsible for all the matters relating to benefit sharing, okay, and all the permissions. When you have to take permission for accessing or commercializing any a product that is taken from a knowledge holder or from some traditional knowledge or from accessing some biological diversity, certain permissions are required, as well as due to the recent amendment, some sort of dilution is there, or so to speak, that domestic traditional knowledge holders or domestic practitioners or domestic companies have been given some sort of relaxation, wherein they allow mere registration instead of actually taking approval or permission from the authority. Okay. Then the quantum of benefits that is to be mutually agreed upon between the parties. So always, before taking up any such biological diversity or accessing them and using them for further research of a commercial benefit, an agreement is signed between the two parties. Okay. The biodiversity management committees will usually be responsible along with the local people, because there is a lack of awareness, or perhaps they don't know how to do it. So the BMCs will facilitate such agreements, and with due all the due clauses would be written in the agreement, and with mutual agreement, the necessary benefit sharing will be arranged. Okay, this has been done in consultation with the local body and the benefit claimers. When I say benefit claimers, it could include any of the stakeholders that we talked about before. Okay. Also, to remind you two things that again we have to keep in mind when we are discussing oral traditional knowledge. One is the Section 3P of the Patents Act, where I mentioned that traditional knowledge per se, that is already known, cannot be patented. Okay, in as much it is protected from patenting. Another important clause that is present in the Patents Act, which is again in favor of the people's rights and the people holding the traditional knowledge, is the disclosure requirement. As per the Act, any person who is accessing and utilizing biological resource and claiming or applying for patents has to disclose the origin and geographical source and geographical origin of the biological material that is used in the invention. This is a mandatory requirement. How mandatory? If you do not do so, there is provision for ground for opposition. That is, if someone comes to know that you have done so without disclosing origin or source, they can file an opposition saying that this person hasn't done so. This can be pre-grant opposition, this can be post-grant opposition. Also, it is a ground for revocation under Section 64. So if the applicant hasn't done so and you file a application for revocation under Section 64, and if the controller of the patents and designs agrees with your application, the patent can even get revoked. So remember, it is very important to disclose such information under the Patents Act. Now, coming to the Biological Diversity Act, what are the access and benefit sharing provisions? Okay, so as I said, for the domestic users, it is registration. But for foreign users, or where companies which have more than a certain amount of foreign holding, and all these things are defined in the Act itself, for such people, there has to be a prior approval with due signing of an ABS agreement with the National Biodiversity Authority. Now, such a provision is necessary for accessing the biological resource and associated traditional knowledge. Second, transfer of results relating to the research on biological research. Third thing is application of IPR outside India for invention based on biological research. So in all these cases, you may have to have registration or prior approval that you gain from the National Biodiversity Authority. So benefit sharing will be decided. There is a formula and there are some provisions, but it is decided on a case to case. Okay. So equitable benefit sharing is decided by the National Biodiversity Authority in accordance with the mutual agreed terms between the applicant local bodies and benefit claimants. So what would be the things that they look at when they talk about benefit sharing? They would look at the extent of use, whether the use is sustainable or not. What are the outcomes and measures? How it will impact or affect the livelihoods of the traditional holder or the community who is sharing that knowledge. Keeping all this in mind, and also whether it is a high value product, some cases the plant or the biological resource that is used could be very rare. So keeping all these things in mind, equitable benefit sharing is decided by the National Biodiversity Authority. Now, this can be monetary or non-monetary. Okay, what do we mean by non-monetary? In case of non-monetary, it can be in a way that it gives some social or economic benefit to the knowledge holding community. For instance, they could open schools, they could create some infrastructure for manufacturing a certain product which they have taken from the community itself, or even when you publish articles, you put the name of the knowledge holder or the knowledge provider as the co-author. If you're patenting, they should also be inventors. In such ways, you can give back to the community in a non-monetary way without like a percentage where you give some royalty or some money to the community. This can also be done. Both such monetary and non-monetary access benefit sharing are supported under the law. This could also mean, capacity building, some way that you contribute to the local economy. Now, why we as TKDL are interested in the oral traditional knowledge? Now, I told you when we started this work, this was basically for preventing misappropriation. So we focused on the Indian systems of medicine because it had high economic value, and also our focus basically has been on textual information, that is information which is already recorded. But in the recent national IPR policy, among other things, we were also mandated to document oral traditional knowledge see, there is a caveat here. Taking care that integrity of the said knowledge is preserved and traditional ways of communities are not compromised. Integrity of said knowledge is preserved. How that is important? I told you that knowledge which is associated with these traditional communities have many aspects, including spiritual aspects. So when you take the knowledge as such and ignore all these things, that is ignoring the integrity of the said knowledge. Okay. So we will have to keep in mind that the knowledge is holistically, respected without delineating or separating the spiritual or any customary aspects of the particular traditional knowledge. So in doing so, and in accepting the mandate that is there from the National IPR policy, we at Traditional Knowledge Digital Library Unit decided that we would take up the handling, including documentation of oral traditional knowledge, understand how it is to be done, so that we would be able to share this knowledge with people and ensure that whatever is done in the realm of oral traditional knowledge is done in an ethical manner without affecting the livelihood and the rights of the traditional knowledge holder. Okay. Now, what are the concerns in this area? See, before embarking upon the journey, we have to understand what are the concerns. Now, what are the concerns? I told you there is no legal framework to protect traditional knowledge. Okay. More so, we have to remember in case of non-biological resources, because the National Biodiversity Authority, when I spoke about, there are provisions for access, benefit sharing, and a lot of other things. But National Biodiversity Authority deals with only biological resources. We also have non-biological resources, okay, which is unrelated to plants and animals. So we have to remember, in such case, again, we lack a legal umbrella. No uniform standard operating procedures for recording traditional knowledge. I showed you several examples of documented traditional knowledge. Now, everybody has done it in their own way. Okay, so there is no fixed format, there is no fixed structure, and there may have been people who took prior informed consent. Some people may have not taken prior informed consent, not even informed the knowledge holder of what they are going to do with this, or simply published it even without indicating or acknowledging the traditional knowledge holder. Okay, so again, there is documentation by several entities. There are universities, government departments, commercial entities. I showed you examples. So this is unorganized, unstructured in a way, and there may be even overlapping work because nobody is talking to each other. Indifference to the empowerment of knowledge holders. I spoke about empowerment yesterday as an aspect of importance in the case of traditional knowledge. So when such knowledge is recorded without taking due cognizance that by doing so, are you maintaining their right to sustain livelihood? This may be more than helping the knowledge holder. It will be destroying a lot of things and probably pushing them into poverty or any other socioeconomic condition, which is not sometimes envisaged and sometimes not envisaged by the person who is taking the knowledge from them. Okay. Low awareness of PIC and access benefit norms, leading to exploitation and misappropriation, I have written. This is in the case of the person who is collecting that knowledge. That is, he may not know that is causing exploitation and misappropriation, but at times it may be also at the level of the knowledge holder, knowledge provider. Due to not knowing about these things, they may share it and in the course of time or in due course, lose the knowledge that they were having in their possession just because of lack of awareness. Okay. Then I mentioned publishing articles without due contribution, then sharing and disseminating the knowledge without considering whether it has potential for IPR. That is, for instance, patents. It could be any other IPR, even copyright, as I mentioned, in music and things like that, or designs or patterns when we talk about weaving or any kind of a drawing, or even the Varli or any kind of Varli painting you must have heard of in the day 2 of your lecture that you had. So all these things, what we have to understand is before deciding to disseminate the knowledge or share the knowledge, see whether this knowledge is disclosed at all. Because in case it is not disclosed and not available, there is a possibility that this can be protected by IPR, and in case protected by IPR, that benefit could be transferred to the community individual or the family who possess that knowledge. Okay, so that's a very important aspect because it will economically benefit them. You have to remember that. Another thing is the knowledge when you collect, it may not be only for the reasons of publishing or doing some minor research. It could also be for validation, then further commercial utilization. Sometimes you use that research to publish, and then somebody takes it up further and some other research takes place. Finally, there is some commercial benefit coming out of it. But what happens often, since nobody either knows that it has been taken from this person, or deliberately no benefits accrue to the knowledge holder or the provider. And this we have heard several times, okay, when we discuss these matters with healers or artisans, they often tell us this. Somebody came, ma'am, they took this, they talked to us, spoke to us. We also very, being gullible, we just thought, okay, they're just discussing things with us. We shared. The next day, they would find that published somewhere, or some designer, showcasing their a new clothes line with that particular pattern, and these people never knew it. And they're not going to get, or they didn't get anything from it. Okay, so these are things which are concerns in handling oral traditional knowledge. Okay, so I'm just summarizing the risk that is associated, that is jeopardizing the rights of the knowledge holders by bringing up unpublished knowledge into public domain and depriving the communities and individuals, then causing potential loss of livelihood and giving ground for misappropriation. These are the major concerns and risks that are associated, which we will discuss. That is through proper handling, how these risks can be mitigated. So I'm taking up each aspect of handling traditional knowledge, that is oral traditional knowledge. So I will take particular aspect and discuss the considerations, or the key considerations, or the key things that we have to keep in mind. For instance, we will take up access and documentation, research, then sharing, and how all these things have to be done, but keeping in mind these things. Okay. So while access and documentation, this includes taking that information, publishing information, and all these things. Okay. So what you have to remember, see, often as researchers, we may do certain things with good intentions, but if we are unaware, we may end up doing things in a non-ethical manner. So it is better that we are aware before we embark upon any research problem, after understanding the all the scenario and all the things related to it. So the first thing that I have mentioned here is respect privacy, freedom, moral rights, and right to sustainable livelihood of the knowledge holder. We have discussed all the other things, but moral rights I wanted to discuss with you. So in no way should that knowledge which you take from them be distorted. So even if you publish, you have to keep all those things in mind before publishing it. Okay. So in moral rights, it means keep the integrity of the knowledge intact, okay, without affecting any part of it or distorting it in any way. So that moral rights aspect also has to be kept in mind. The other thing is, whenever we take such information, this has to be participatory. It's a consultative process. PIC already mentioned, so we need to have explicit consent. Why participatory? I told you, it could be the knowledge holders, could be individuals, community, or it could be an entire village which has. It will have a mukhya. So it will have a person who is the head of the village. So if you discuss it only with the head of the village, it may so happen that the other people feel left out. So whenever taking such knowledge or discussing about such knowledge, it is better to take them as a group, discuss with all of them so that you can get the complete perspective and everybody's viewpoints on the particular knowledge, even to the extent of whether they want it shared, how they want it shared, and all those things. Another important thing is building the trust with the community holders and with complete consensus and modality. Now, often we have heard from people who are doing research in this area that people are not willing to share this information with us. Okay, there is a deficit of trust. There could be many reasons for it. One of the reasons is that, as I told you, often people go to them, take the information, and all the contribution goes unacknowledged. So if any traditional knowledge provider has experienced this, obviously he is wary of a person. He would not be willing to share. You say, "Waise bhi mujhe kya mil raha? I don't get compensated. People just take it and run away with my information, and I am left completely high and dry. So why should I share it with you?" Okay. So building trust. So building trust will be important to tell them what you're going to do with it. There you will acknowledge them, that you would be able to connect them with somebody else who would be able to put the knowledge to good use. All these things have to be told to them. Take collective use also for variation and duplication. So in case there are two people doing two different things or doing the same thing, if there is some variation in it, anything, you must talk to all the people. Then record comprehensive information. Why comprehensive information? Because you should be able to go back and retrieve that information at some later point of time if you wish, and also for identifying where that information has been taken from. So this has to be very clear, succinct data, geographical profile, profile of local population, ecological data, the other related areas also. That would help in assessing a lot of things, especially the impact on using that knowledge. Okay? Also record apprehensions, challenges expressed by the knowledge holder, and preferably record it in audio video mode. This helps later on if you have left out certain things and the person speaks, it is easier to retain a lot of that information. So, and also show it, and in always an audio video mode is always and additionally preferable mode. You could always write it down, but keep this method also accessible. Next topic I want to talk about is the research and development aspect. Okay. Again, here the informed consent, express consent is important. See, when we go and look at a particular knowledge or technology that is being used by traditional healer people, for instance, and you may understand looking at it what they are doing. Okay. You may want to work further on it, but if you want to do so, always do it with express consent. And when you are trying to develop a research and development program, R&D program, try to prioritize unaddressed problems of the community. Again, remember, I am talking about ethical handling. What is important is that you do all these things so you can give back to the community from whom you're taking the information. There may be many unaddressed problems. For example, if there is a water shortage and if they're having some method to do so and you are sort of, mechanizing it or in some way making the things much easier, that could be addressing some of their problems. Similarly, if there is a particular condition that is prevalent in the community, so if you're developing drugs or anything, that would help the community specifically. So you can prioritize unaddressed problems. So the information that you take from them could be used for these things. Avoid conflict with traditions and beliefs. Okay, there is a customary and spiritual aspect. So never do anything without their consent, which would actually clash with that tradition and belief. If there is any contradictory result, discuss it with them. Okay, they should be willing that you will publish this and just completely sort of negate whatever they have been believing all their lives. Then cooperation and partnership with knowledge holders. This could be in many ways. You could use their youngsters or the educated among them as partners in your research, or discuss protocols with them, discuss their how you are going to do about things with them, and thus use their ideas too on going further on that matter. Then when you publish information or research, share it with them. Share it with them in local language so that they can understand. Okay, it will help them too. And material transfer agreement. So in case they're sharing any biological material with you or any sort of material with you physically, then all these things should have material transfer agreement. All extant laws and procedures should be followed. No one is going to tell you this. That's why I gave you a background. I told you when you use biological resources, you will have to take permissions and approvals from National Biodiversity Authority. If you are going to patent it, you have to disclose the source and origin. See, not knowing law is no excuse. Even if you go to court, it is not an excuse. So you have to know the law and follow the law. So before you embark on any R&D, know what all you have to do. If commercialized, ensure that the benefits are shared, monetary or non-monetary. Now coming to dissemination of information. In case of publication, this I'm talking about as an author as well as a publisher. There should be mandatory prior informed consent along with manuscript submission for the publication. The publisher also should keep in mind that such a document is necessary before publishing such information. And also on part of the researcher, he should be submitting such a form along with his manuscript. Then another thing is, remember, don't publish it immediately. Look for the possibility that this information is undisclosed. See whether it can be patented. Because once you disclose, it cannot be patented. I told you only novel information can be patented. Novel innovations, inventions, or technologies can be patented. So in case you publish it, then that patenting possibility will go. There is some grace period, but the better thing would be to first see that opportunity, patent it, you can publish it later. Include knowledge holders as co-authors and use due consultative process for further research. Respect moral rights. This is also important when you disseminate information. The other key thing here is awareness and education. Acknowledge these people. You are taking their contributions, acknowledge and recognize their contribution to society. It is very great. These are people who are closely connected to their roots. They learn from nature. They do whatever they do is in a sustainable manner. You will never find tribal people destroying their ecosystem. Okay, they understand that is the only way of sustainable living. So they will always, whatever they do, it is in a very in a manner that is with due respect to their environment, due respect to nature. So recognize those efforts and recognize their contribution. Okay, I have put a picture here of Lakshmi Kutiyamma. She got the Padma Shri award. She's from the Kani tribe, and her forte, that is her specialization, is in anti-poison, treating snake bites and insect bites. Okay, then have teaching modules and capacity building workshops like the one we are doing now. Through this, we are able to tell many people what is the ethical way of handling traditional knowledge. Some of you may be aware of certain things, some of you may not be aware of certain things, but by disseminating such information, at least we would be giving you that knowledge that you have to do it in a certain manner. That is the right way of doing it. Okay. Include such ethical aspects in curriculum of educational courses. It will help students to learn right from a younger age and imbibe that consciousness within them, so that whenever they go as they grow older or do research in that area, they would understand that these are aspects that they need to keep in mind. And due appreciation, I already told you, there are also many non-governmental organizations too, which understand and respect these people. Like you have the Srishti Award, which is given by the Srishti Foundation. So there is recognition, minimal recognition, I would say, not the kind of recognition that they deserve. Okay. Just to show you some of the people who have received Padma Shri Award. Okay. So these are all people who are connected, have done environment-friendly work with due consciousness to their environment. Okay. So although we speak about intellectual property rights, we have to have a balance with intellectual property rights and people's rights. One cannot be at the cost of the other. Okay. So we have to remember these people so that whenever we talk of IP rights or patenting, we have to first remember that they also do have rights and they have their livelihood. Respect that and then go ahead with your research. Okay. So some of the aspects of the prior informed consent that I spoke to you about. Normally nowadays, those who understand the process have created certain formats for recording prior informed consent. I'm just giving you a few pointers as to what that prior informed consent form should contain. Okay. It is basically a written consent. Okay. It has to be signed by the person who gives you their consent, and will also include any improvements or any additions or anything that they have done with the original traditional knowledge. And in general, record the name of the person, the taluka, the region, all the due details, and in due consultation with all the people. So you have all the names. You can have the person, headman, you can have the other community members, be it male, female, all of them. Okay. Basic willingness, whether they're willing to share their information. See, some of them may be willing to share, but they may say that share only partial information. I don't want to give the complete information. I will give you some abstract. So if any person wants to connect with us, you facilitate that, but I don't want to share the entire information. That is also good enough. Respect that. Then there is a declaration by the knowledge holder and declaration by the person who is recording it. Okay. Also give them examples of access benefit sharing. Give them a whole idea of how you're recording it, why you're recording it, what you will do with it, so that they are clearly understanding. Okay. So informed consent means that. You could have an explanatory note where you talk about the voluntary consent option. Okay. Also tell them it can be retracted later. So in case today they give it to you, tomorrow they say, no, I don't want to share the information. Again, you have to respect that. Okay. Remember, record will be available to the knowledge holder and family. So you create record, but also share a copy with them in a local language, preferably, or in a language that they understand. And also explain to them what is the pros and cons of full or partial disclosure. Then one important thing I want to point out here is lot of this knowledge that we knowledge holders may have already been previously recorded. So when we talk about commercialization or creating commercial benefits, sometimes it may so happen that although that we may have discussed it with those people, it is already publicly available information, then it may not be possible to give those benefits to them, okay, as per the laws, extent laws, or in any other manner. So that also should be, they should be made aware of that information also. Okay. And further, if you do research beyond what you have taken from them and one step ahead, two steps ahead, and you have value added that information, due acknowledgement even upon further this would help, because primarily that information has been taken from them. Okay. Now, although I'm talking about the prior informed consent, there are still many challenges in implementing prior informed consent. This we have collated from the people who are actually doing work at the ground. Now, there may be difficulties in identifying a leader, okay, or who you exactly take the prior informed consent. Sometimes it may so happen that you have several members. Now, there is a dispute among the members. There are 2 factions, 3 factions. Although they possess the same knowledge, they are not willing to agree on the prior informed consent. So then what do you do? Okay. So this all has to go with the consultative process. In due course, you may be able to handle it, but these are challenging. Then there are knowledge holders and knowledge practitioners, as I said. These may be the same or may be different. So if they don't agree upon the prior informed consent, again, you could have a difficulty on how you go about recording prior informed consent. Several different communities are claiming benefits. Again, that is why I say consultative participatory processes, all these things are important, because you have to identify those different people who are claiming benefits. Okay. Then gaining these signatures. Sometimes they would tell you many things, okay, but finally when you ask them to sign, they would say, no, I will not sign this. So your exercise becomes meaningless then, because that recording has to be in due format. It has to be signed, or it has to be video recorded with due consent. Okay. So that trust factor will apply here. Then once you already recorded and create some commercial benefit out of it, you may find new people coming up saying that, Nani, I was also aware of this information, you never consulted me in the first place. So here also you will have to keep this in mind, that such things can happen. And another important thing is retraction of prior informed consent. So if that happens, you will have to respect it, and again you will have to see how you will go about doing, if you have moved ahead in research, what you should do. So again, I have sort of put it in a nutshell. What is responsible documentation and traditional knowledge utilization practices? So for this, we would have to have due empathy, equality, and partnership in mind. So oral TK, first and foremost, remember prior informed consent, acknowledge the persons you have taken the thing from, then access and benefit sharing. Okay. Here I have put 2 examples on the side. These are examples that I have got from National Innovation Foundation. So these are medicines which have been created from indigenous knowledge, low-cost medicines. They have been marketed, okay? And some benefit has gone back to the community also. The first thing is Masteract. This is for treating mastitis in animals, okay? And the second example I've shown is a Vermivet, that is broad-spectrum anthelmetic for animals. And both these things were obtained from the traditional knowledge holders themselves. They used to already practice it for their animals, for the cattle and sheep and all that. And this knowledge was taken from them. It was given to one of the companies. Now that royalty or whatever product that is sold, a percentage goes back to the community. Some other examples I've again taken from the National Biodiversity Authority site. So we spoke about some ethnomedical knowledge yesterday. So the ethnomedical knowledge that is from the Siddhi community of Gujarat has been taken by somebody, and as a part of the National Biodiversity Authority requirement, they have taken the thing from Gujarat SBB, and they have they will be sharing that findings and will be given to the National Biodiversity Authority and the SBB. Similarly, L'Oreal has also taken some information that is glycyrrhiza, that is biological resource, glycyrrhiza glagra, and they have paid an upfront fee for accessing the biological resource. Here also is another example of Hindustan Lever Limited, where they have taken a biological resource and shared the product after it commercially sold as an upfront payment to the biodiversity board. Now, why I'm using the term biodiversity board here? So where the communities are there and where the people are there, the biodiversity board is the one who manages that access benefit sharing. They will then share it with the community where it is not identified, where you cannot identify who is the person who you have to give the benefit. Then there is something called the National Biodiversity Fund into which it will go, and that will be generally used for the benefit of all communities. I would also like to highlight some problems, like I highlighted for prior informed consent. There are some complexities in benefit sharing. Now, knowledge and practice does not pertain to utilization of bioresource. Why have I put this as a complexity? Because National Biodiversity Authority, which implements access and benefit sharing, does not have non-bioresources under its purview. Okay, so here is a challenge. The knowledge is distinct, but you may have no immediate takers for it. So commercialization is a problem, and even having that benefit may be a problem. Knowledge is distinct, but it has limited users with limited monetary benefit or value. Another very important thing we have to remember is knowledge is distinct, but it is associated with depleting natural resources. Here is an ethical conundrum. Should we allow that resource to die for the sake of commercializing it, or we'll have to keep that sustainability in mind before we even think of commercializing it? So there are a lot of aspects when you think of benefit sharing. The community may say, okay, you take it, give the money, it would help us. But what happens afterwards? What happens if the bioresource or the any resource that you're using gets completely dies off? That's a loss to the planet. That is a loss to the people. Okay, we'll have to remember that. Then the other problem could be the knowledge providers, the persons who are sharing this, do not want the percolation of benefits to the knowledge holders. I told you these people could be different. There are several stakeholders. So we'll have to take all these people into a consultative process and see to it that the benefit sharing is equally given to all of them. Okay, this includes intermediaries too. Then fixing contribution and share of benefits to the deserving parties. Okay? That's also one challenge. And where the ownership of the resource and the knowledge are distinct but not integrable. You understand? The person who is managing the resource, that is the biological resource, may be different, and the person who is practicing it, the associate traditional knowledge, the person who holds it, is different, and they are not on a common ground. Okay, or they are not agreeing to the benefit sharing formula that you're giving them. Then in some such cases also, you may have challenges in sharing benefits. There are several examples of potential good practices. So some pointers from there: you should create a good governance and institutional structure for implementing the PIC and ABS. Important, sustainable, maintain the characteristics of the ecosystem natural habitat, distribution of income to all the stakeholders. Then mandating research papers to have PIC. There are examples. I have put the things in the slides. You all will be able to see these slides later, so you can have a look. I have also shared the website from which I have taken the information, so you can go and have a look, those interested. Okay. Some of the global best practices also I have added. This also you can go and have a look at the particular website. It would help you in enhancing the knowledge base that you already have. See, some pointers we can give you, some things we can tell you, we can just make you aware of certain of the points. But if you look at the actual detailed procedure, how people have done it, the actual ground realities, and how there are actual code of conduct and best practices, which in where there is much detailed information, you can go and have a look at the global best practice. Okay. So what, through all these things, I'm talking about ethical handling, I'm talking about traditional knowledge, I gave you examples of PIC, I told you the challenges of PIC. What is it that we want basically? What is it that we wish to achieve? Okay. So primarily ethical documenting of knowledge, mandatory prior informed consent, No person having traditional knowledge should be deprived of his knowledge without his consent. Sharing the information with knowledge givers, again, this is a very important thing. We may record, we may create digitized versions, we may do a lot of things with it. Give it back to them, okay? At least in the form of a copy so they can have that information. They are the ones who shared it with you. Sustaining livelihoods of knowledge holders. Always see to it that taking that contribution from them, the knowledge contribution, does not destroy the only means of livelihood that they have. Fair and equitable benefit sharing, conservation of habitat, and finally, through this, we would be able to create models for sharing knowledge to third parties. Okay. One important model that I wanted to speak about, which also spoke about yesterday, somebody told us about Arogya Pacha, that is the Kani tribe. It is the first example of access and benefit sharing in India, and probably one of the most celebrated examples of access and benefit sharing, because it was even before the Convention of Biological Diversity that such a thing was created. Although at this point of time, there only remains a trust, which is, this includes the members of the Kani tribe to do certain social welfare schemes. But yet, as an example, it stands out. Many efforts have been made in that direction later also. In due course, we would also learn with more examples and with more knowledge to create such models so that they can be implemented across in a way that they implement access and benefit sharing in the true spirit of the Convention of Biological Diversity and the Biodiversity Act as we have in India today. So the last thing I wanted to say, we are creating a guidance document for handling and working with traditional knowledge. We have taken the inputs from several stakeholders. We are in the process of finalizing this document. In due course of time, we will implement it for those doing such research in CSIR and maybe later on to the various AICTA institutions. So through this, we wish to create the necessary awareness and about many of the things that I have spoken to you today. So thank you for patiently listening to me, and I will stop presenting. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, ma'am, to deliver such informative, nice presentation. So we also thank you to all the participants. And now we can take some questions. We request all the participants, if you have any query or doubt or questions, please raise your digital hand. I will unmute one by one and you will ask your question, please. Yes, Dr. Rajesh Barmaji, could you please ask your question?
Hello.
Yes. Please.
Hello. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes.
Yeah, sir, this is Dr. Rajesh Verma. Thank you, ma'am, for the very wonderful, insightful lecture. One thing I want to ask, did you offer some kind of grants for the projects through the CSI or TKDL platform?
Actually, CSR is an intramural organization, so we do not actually give grants for all these things because we use our funds for CSIR research. But you could look at other organizations like Ministry of Ayush and National Medicinal Plant Board, which do give some grants for medicinal plant research and so on and so forth. You could also look at DBT and DST. They all provide grants. But of course, it has to be within their mandate and within the certain definitions of the projects that they give in their website. You can go through them.
Okay. Thank you, ma'am.
Namaste, Dr. Vishwanathan Kaleji. Could you please ask your question?
Kale, you may speak a little loudly.
Hello. Hello.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. If the on and off consent is demanded in a reverse manner, what to do?
Can you explain yourself?
May
Yeah.
Am I audible?
You're
Am I
audible.
audible, madam? Yeah.
You're audible. You're audible.
Okay. If the consent is revoked,
Yeah.
then what to do in that off and on and off manner? That was a fabulous example. I appreciate that thing, madam.
Yeah.
Please elaborate.
See, normally everything is done in a consultative manner, as I told you. This is not a scenario which is often observed. Okay. So you may not come across such a thing. But why I highlighted this is because I'm speaking about ethical handling and working with the traditional knowledge. So where in such a scenario, it may happen that the person no longer wishes to share it with you, so you could discuss it with them once again. Okay. Maybe they have some apprehensions and challenges or something in their mind which has caused them to retract. So try and understand what is the reason. Often they would come round. Not as if, they do not wish to share because in the first place they have done so. But finally, if it so happens they are completely adamant about no longer sharing that information, then you will have to speak. You may not be able to proceed with whatever you had planned earlier.
Madam, yes, it was the option, but as earlier was told that this information should be in a fully transparent manner, and it should be it should be revealed fully. It will come to us in step by step manner. If it is not reached us as a full, and in between he revokes, that means he wish to stop, then neither we can move forward. What to do in this situation?
Do you have a specific case in mind? Are you talking through experience?
Yeah. Like Upanishada. A person says, "I'm ready to teach these verses," and later on he got influenced by some his colleague or seniors, something. Then he said, "No, this is banned thing, so I cannot teach these things." So I'm waiting his approval. But what to do ethically? I am not going to exploit him. Neither I wish that that means I don't think that he is reluctant. He is not reluctant that way.
Okay, I'll take your example only because you're talking about Upanishad. Now, Upanishad is written subject matter. It is nobody's. Okay. So Upanishad, in that sense, if you're talking about, it is not really oral traditional knowledge. The kind of information that I spoke about is usually about that information which he is owner of, and it is in that person's possession, and in a way, it's closed information. So if you're talking about Upanishad, and if you are talking about somebody, yeah.
Pardon, madam. I'm talking about the teaching, patana.
Doesn't
Pathan,
matter.
recitation.
If he is the person who is this, there are so many people who will be able to do Upanishad Pathan, no?
Okay.
So
Then can I?
someone else.
Then should I change the person?
Mhm. See, I don't understand the full context of what you're saying, but
Okay.
on the face of it, what I understand is you could easily ask someone else to do it because this is not really, his personal traditional knowledge, so to say.
Is it ethical to all of us?
Why not? Upanishad Pathan, I think anybody can do.
Yes. Okay. No. Changing the person.
See, this ethical, this which you're talking about, I think is different from what I spoke about. You are possibly having this ethical thing because you have had an agreement with him in some way. Okay. So if you feel that ethically on your part it would be wrong to do so, it is better to discuss the matter with him and say that since you're not willing to do so, I would like to do it from someone else, and just keep it and then over to the next person. I think that's
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that is quite possible. Okay, thank you, madam.
Namaste. I just wanted to know about the assessments we are going to have tomorrow because we were told that we will be assessed tomorrow.
Yeah, Anil, would you like to answer?
Yes, yes. So tomorrow we have a brief lecture for about 30 minutes. Then we'll have a question answer based assessment that will be through Google Forms. So you will have a Google form based question answer session, and the link will be shared in the chat box. So you can there will be 20 questions, and you will be given 30 minutes for those questions to give your answers, and you can attempt all, since there is no negative mark for these questions. So this is what we have planned for the examination tomorrow. Is that okay?
I think it's okay. Then go to the next question.
So there is a question with regard to the timing. So there will be, a session which will start at 4. So around 4:30 we'll have this assessment. That is, that will be within, during the session only.
Namaste, ma'am.
Yes.
Sir, my question is, I came from actually special education background. If you want to get informed consent from the student, it is not possible. In such case, can I get informed consent from the parents or teachers?
I'm not clear about your question. Informed consent on what?
When we are research, if any information you want to get it from special children, the special children is not in the position to understand the question and give the answer, so that in such case whether we can get the informed consent from their parents or teachers.
See, we are talking here about traditional knowledge. I don't think this scenario is likely what you're talking about. Okay, so I'm talking about traditional knowledge in the sense that it is part of a family, community, individual. And if a person is a practitioner or a holder of traditional knowledge, I understand that he or she is aware enough to give that information. It is not likely to be a child. Okay.
Agree, ma'am. Even we would like to give the traditional games to the student with special needs. In such a case, definitely we have to get the informed consent from the students as well. So in such a case, whether we can get informed consent from the parents or teachers.
But why do you want to give benefit sharing to the person?
Pardon, ma'am?
Why do you want to give benefit sharing? Why do you want to share benefit with that person? Has that person contributed to something?
Yes, ma'am. We have to give information to them only. So when
I'm not clear. What I'm asking is, in what way did that person contribute? In what way did the special child that you're talking about, how did the special child contribute to your work?
Yes, ma'am. Through that, through teaching these traditional games, we can improve their numerical skills as well as social skills. In such a way, if you talk about a student with visual impairment, we can develop their social skills as well as academic skills, ma'am. In that scenario, what can be done?
The things that I spoke about, Dhanalakshmi ji, is for taking knowledge from someone, okay, not imparting knowledge. So the benefit sharing which I'm talking about is when you take knowledge from someone, then you compensate them. So as long as the good work that you're doing, that you're talking about, I don't think that is relevant to the subject matter that we will discuss.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you for the information.
So Yashwant ji, would you like to ask something? Dr. Sujata?
Hello, madam. The tribes, they don't want to share their knowledge, mainly because it has been misused by some of us. Is there anything that can be done to win the trust of the tribes from government side, like that? Any planning?
No, there's nothing. See, it is between the researcher and the person who is doing it. But on the various discussions we have had, not only with the people who do the research or collect the information, wherein we have been told many times this happens, the issue of mistrust causes them not to share information. We have also heard from the persons, knowledge holders themselves. So this is not a thing that anybody can intervene. It is not like you can have a mediator in this case. So you
Sometimes
have to
it will
convince the
be
person.
their livelihood.
Yeah. So you will have to convince the person that you would not affect their livelihood or their living or in any way. Not only that, you should be able to convince them that you will enhance it in some way. Otherwise, what is it giving them for them to share that information with you also? And if they're not going to gain anything by it, so you have to be able to convince them that you would be doing so in whatever manner, like in the many ways I showed you. So you should be able to
Yeah.
tell them that you will be able to give back to them in such a way. I'm sure you will be able to gain the trust. And of course, I need not tell you that this has to be done, and you have to be, honest in the promises or whatever you make. Okay, that is what we mean by the ethical handling. Yeah, thank you.
Um, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Actually, I just had a query about will we be getting the course videos that you have spoken, because it is so nice that there are so many things to revisit and make a note of. So it will be helpful if this class proceedings can be shared with us as the video files.
Namaste, Hari Krishnan ji. So, I hope you received all links in a mail. At the end of that mail, you have also received the Google Drive link.
Yes, sir.
If
But
you-
all the presentations are available, the PPTs, but the class recordings as such, we have not got anything.
No, there is YouTube link
Okay.
where you can watch all lectures. And for PPT, I am after completion of class or lecture, I am going to upload on that Google
Okay.
Drive.
Okay,
Okay,
sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
thank you.
Yashwant wants to ask something.
Hello. Hello.
Yes.
Am I audible?
Yes.
Hello. Yeah, good evening, ma'am. Ma'am, since today's lecture was regarding the ethics, I so I have two queries in this field. The first query is means suppose ma'am two persons have developed a novel product that is completely new, and the first person files a patent for the product, and the first person disregards the contribution made by the second person, and instead of the second person, the first person adds one of his relatives for the while filing the patent. Then what options and the means IP rights or the legal rights the second person is left with? And my second query is about when a patent is awarded and there are two inventors for the product, and the first person goes for the technology transfer without the consent of the second inventor. That in such scenario also what the second person is options he is left with.
Okay. Although this relates to the patent law, I will respond to it. See, the thing is, there is a provision in the patent law. In case somebody ignores an inventor and applies for instance, this is the ground for opposition. Okay, so it exists in the law itself. The person can go and apply, inform through opposition that the person has been ignored. Similarly, for technology transfer, there is provision that whenever such things take place, it has to be with the consent of both, okay, in case you're a applicant. So there is provision in law that you can go and file a.
Okay,
You can do
okay,
it
okay.
in the court, yeah.
Ma'am, in this first case where the patent has just been filed and the second contributor has not been given the credit while filing the patent, then at this stage means if he doesn't want to means engage directly with the first person because some of means like the high authority or some kind of in such reason is there, then what other options he can means.
No, I seem to understand your problem, but the thing is, if you have to do something, this has to be done in a legal manner only. What other recourse will be you have unless you're going to, you're willing to go and speak to that person yourself. If that person has already disregarded you, or the person who, the second person, I mean, so if the
Right.
person has already been disregarded, then you think the first person would listen to reason and later on include the person? See, that provision also exists in law. You can add an inventor later on in case you have this. There are ways to add things into patent applications.
Okay.
But if you want to oppose, you will have to do it properly by procedure.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Namaste, ma'am. Namaste, Anil ji, and thanks a lot for all the informative presentation so far. We got to learn a lot. So I have some queries. I would start with the day 2 Anil ji's presentation. In that, he showed about the geographical indication as well. So there, he gave the famous case of the Bangla Rasogolla and the Odisha Rasogolla. In fact, I had initiated that and I'd worked for our Odisha Rasogolla GI application. So my question is that how do we change the perception? Because even now, after we have got GI in 2019, Odisha's name is left out in most of the GI related articles about Rasogolla, say, and even the product description is given wrong. For example, even in Anil ji's presentation, he showed that Bangla Rasogolla is white, whereas Odisha Rasogolla is brown. But that doesn't happen. If you see our Niladri Bijay, which is the last day of the Ratha Jatra, on that day, Rasogolla Bhogo means it's an offering to Devi Lakshmi and Sri Jagannath. And it is done every year. Each year on the last day, that is the tradition. And that Rasagolla, if you see, it is white color. And in Odisha, many varieties, shades of Rasagolla are available. So all this, how do we change? Like, do we have a place in our IKS? We should have a website in which all these technical details are mentioned correctly so that whoever is writing in the future, they will access that and they will present correctly, because one wrong article which has been published, maybe that gives support to so many others. Like many places you will still find reference that it was offered and it was called Khiromohana, whereas there's nothing called Khiromohana. It's just not offered in Puri Sri Jagannath temple. So these issues are there, ma'am. Ma'am, another issue is of the art. See, there are so many art and each has its own local traditional name. So how do we ensure that the correct name is given? Like all art is not tribal art. Worldly art is separate. In Odisha, we have similar looking to worldly art that's called Sora paintings that we have. Then there is the Gond art. Then there are so many varieties of art and they have their name. Then there is the Pattachitra, which is of our Sri Jagannath ji in the temple also you'll find, and that is also done. So how do we change that? Now many which is not Pattachitra, those are being sold as Pattachitra. For example, West Bengal's art, that should be Potua or Pot or Bengal scroll paintings, but they are selling it as Pattachitra because Pattachitra is the famous name. Everyone wants to encash on the famous name and selling. In that ways, our traditional name that is getting ignored, like there is confusion because art is same now. So how do we ensure correct name is given? Even online, there is rampant infringement. And it is very challenging how to check how many people do we go connect. If there is a website in which all these distinction is mentioned properly, then we can just give that link. You please go study this. Accordingly, you present. Do not infringe our name. Use your own local traditional name. That's what we want. We want correct representation. Ma'am, how do we ensure that, ma'am? Anilji, you also please share.
With regard to information on GIs, I mean, you can go visit the website, I mean, GI registry, wherein you will find the complete details about the registered GI. There is a, I mean, if you see the specifications that have been submitted by the applicant, I mean, it discloses all the essential parameters which have been filed. So I believe with regard to the mark which is registered, those specifications are the authentic, I mean, parameters given.
Anilji,
So
what to do when
yes.
the specifications are themselves wrong? If the applicants have submitted wrong, means they will accept that. It has happened, it is happening. There is nowhere we need one from the government where there can be a second check. Because right now, you see, I'm telling example of a rice, I'm telling, they have just taken one particular district and they have registered it. And whereas that rice is done in 2-3 districts as well. So how, and then those people were not even aware that it has been filed. After the filing, they come to know, and then you can't do anything about it. And it's happening. Rice is just one example I'm telling. It's for pan categories, whether handicraft, handloom, everything for that it is happening because no one knows the product, and the real people are not even invited. They don't even know it has been filed. It's really sad that the local community is being left out. The people, few people who know, they are just doing, and that too, they are not taking the local experts into consideration. And it's a major challenge. We need to sort this. For each thing, we need that documentation and correct thing. But then how will we document when there is nothing available? Who will
So
do
with
the
regard,
groundwork in
yes,
research?
got your question. So with regard to the, I mean, the correct information being submitted in the application, I mean, there is a provision when these applications are published, and the concerned person who is, I mean, having the proper information may represent before the authorities, stating that the information is not correct or it requires additional information. So there is a process, you have to participate in those process. Once it is registered, there is still no provision to get it amended also. So you have to just go through the act, the provisions, and take the proper recourse available. Thank you.
Thank you so much
Yeah,
for
just
sharing.
to add a small point to what Anilji had mentioned, Anita, what I would like to kind of say is that whatever we are talking today, the geographical distinctions are post-independence, demarcations. So you need to understand that, whether the Rasgulla belongs to Bengal or to Orissa, it's all Indian in nature. I think we have to look at a larger objective. Having said that, I understand that the connect to the communities involved may not be there. To give an example, if we are talking of idli that most of us are aware of, there are more than 100 and odd varieties of idlis. Okay. When we say idli, everybody thinks about the rice idli that is, typically marketed. So these are the distinctions that come in communities, in places and all that. So if you want to go file a GI for a particular product from a particular region, okay, as a researcher, you and I cannot file a GI application, but you can support, the activities of that particular community, and you can file a new application on their behalf or facilitate them to file an application of a GI that, belongs to that particular region, that particular community, and thereby empower them.
Thank you, ma'am. After all these are the invaluable treasures of incredible India. That is the GI tagline. Thanks a lot.
Yes, yes.
No, ma'am. There is no digital hand raised. So we can, it's 5:24. So we can close the session with mantra. So ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, all the
Yes.
participants.
I think there was one question, Piyush, in the chat box that talked about the exam for tomorrow, the test for tomorrow. It will be a multiple choice questionnaire that would be given to you after you attend the program, and the summary session will be complete, and then you will be shared the Google link. You can take the test, and I think it's time limited, right? How much time you plan to give?
20
45
questions,
minutes.
30 minutes. 20 questions, 30 minutes.
Okay. Sure. Thank you. See you all tomorrow.
See you. Pranam.